reckon that's half bad for a bloke in a shed on a 14-inch bed mill trying to cut a 6.5 foot slot.
Welcome back to part 2 of the Howard Cultivator Rebuild, Renovation, Remake, Restoration series. In part 1, if you've not seen it, check the link above my head. That will take you to part 1 of this series where we explain where the Howard Cultivator was made, we strip it down and find out what's wrong with it. And the first thing that is wrong is that the main spine of the machine, the bar that goes all the way through from the one side to the other, which carries the wheels and the tines and the seat and the drawbar and everything, basically the strongest bit of the machine, we needed to get a new one. I went out and bought an 1.5 inch piece of round bar, and I've cut a keyway in it to accept all the bits and pieces that bolt to it so that they're all nice and rigid. I did sort of look at, rebuilding the old one, but it was just way too much work, and, it would have taken way too long. And I think also, if we've got a good spine on the machine, it's going to be nice and strong, and it's going to last for as long as this. This is at least 100 years old, if not 120, 130 years old, this machine. Turn of the century, definitely. And I wanted it so it's nice and strong and we can use it, and I've got no worries about things bending and breaking when we're putting it in the ground.
So this is by no means any kind of machining demonstration. All I do know is you don't want to touch that bit when it's going round, and you need to keep everything straight, and that's where it stops. The rest of it is up to you. But basically just cutting this keyway in this shaft, bolting it down, clamping it down to the bed, using the grooves in the bed to hold the shaft, and just keeping it as straight and level as possible all the way along. And I did 14-inch passes every time. It's taken me about 2.5 hours, and it ain't too bad for what it is. All it's got to do is hold some tines and the frame, and it's good, and I'm very, very happy.
So we've got the key cut, and now all we've got to do now is drop the end off on the saw, and then we can start building bits back onto it. Let's go.
There we have old versus new. So I think I've done a reasonably good job. That keyway, if you can see it, I'm not sure if you can all the way down, but it's pretty straight all the way. I got a couple of mistakes in it, and this isn't ultra precision. This is an agricultural implement, and when you hear people say it's very agricultural when they're talking about cars, which should be more than agricultural, or sorry, less than agricultural, I suppose, better made, perhaps. All this is doing is turning soil. Yeah. So, we haven't got to be ultra precise with this particular piece of equipment, but you can see there the amount of wear that's taken place on the axles. And I'm very grateful that it has taken place there, because the wheel hubs themselves are very, very tricky, or going to be very tricky to reproduce. And they're going to go on the end of there. I'll show you what I mean. So this is a wheel hub. It's got a flange on one end. It's missing one ear here where it bolts up. It's original. It's got Howard written in it in the casting, or I probably think that's casting rather than stamped. But it's that bit in there that's wear, and they're metal on metal effectively. There's no grease in between, but effectively it slides on the end of there like that. And I am actually not going to do anything with these, because I think most of the wear took place on the old one, as we can see exactly where it's worn, and the amount of wear there, really, I don't think is much point in boring anything out of there and putting it in a bush. I think I'm wasting my time. The amount of use that this is going to get, plenty of grease on that shaft. There's some grease holes here where you pump grease into it and oil it and stuff. That's all bunged up. I've got to get that all clean, and I've got to clean this up, obviously. But once that's on there, the amount of play in those wheels is going to be virtually, well, it's not worth worrying about at the end of the day. Really not worth worrying about. So I don't think I'm going to bother with a new shaft, plenty of grease, a felt seal that's going to go in that end just to keep the dirt and muck out, because it's all going to tumble in from the wheels as it's turning. I think we're basically going to keep it like that. So I think that's a good result. one less thing to make. I need to find the ear for that and repair it, but that's not the end of the world if I can't. So yeah, good result. But before I can put the wheels on, we've basically got to put on the frame, because the frame, once it's on, can't come off. We have to thread the shaft through the main holes of the frame. There's one here and one here. This is a seat mounting bracket at the back, and this is the pivot for the raise and lower. And we've also got our sort of quadrant gear that we've also got to put on as well, with its collars to hold the frame in, you know, in central on the bar. So that all needs cleaning up with a wire brush, and I think a bit of a flat wheel as well, just to keep that nice and tidy. And we'll get to that and we'll get that fitted. Right then, we've got main frame, the main drawbar frame, cleaned up with a wire wheel, my trusty wire wheel, this one here, the really aggressive one, flap disc, and a cut wire brush just to get in the holes. And yeah, it's cleaned up pretty nicely. It's looking very antique, which is what I like. And also under the rust we have actually got some paint. If I lift it, I don't know if you can see there, it was blue. That blue paint, probably original. Probably original. Has it been painted since? Don't know. It's all over. The whole thing's been painted if it has been painted since, because that blue evidence of blue paint is all over the frame. So I think that this was blue. I've seen them green, I've seen them white, and I've seen them light blue. This looks like a Ransom's colour blue, which was sort of like a darker blue. But I am not going to paint it, and I'm not going to paint it for two reasons. First of all, it's a waste of paint, and it's going to go behind a tractor that is not painted, so it'll look a bit odd if this was all nice and pristine and gorgeous looking and glossy and shiny, and the old tractor pulling it was you know, still in its working clothes. So this is going to stay in its working clothes. That's the plan. Not only that, I am going to leave as much metal that was original as possible, and that includes this repair here. So this plate here at some point has been put in because the frame broke, and I think what's happened, when I turn it over I'll show you, I think what's happened is that the frame was cracked somewhere here, and this sort of piece, this extra piece here, has been bent to shape, and it's been welded in, but it's also been bolted in at the same time. If I turn it over, I think, get some light on it, I think that this was welded somewhere here. It's difficult to tell because of all the rust and corrosion, but somewhere in there I think is a weld and a crack, possibly under this bracket. Don't know, it's likely to be through the bracket, the hole whether this bracket here goes through, there's a hole here, and then that bit has been welded on and it's been bolted on. I'm going to leave that because that's history, that's part of this machine's story, if you like, and I want to keep it like that. So that's the first thing. The second thing is these two collars. Now these collars, they go on the outside of the frame and they hold the frame central on the spine, one each side, like that. And they go basically on here, like that. And if you look at them, you can see they're different. This one's much thicker. There's a hole in it with a thread and a bolt that screws into it, and then it locks it to the shaft. And then this one, which is a lot thinner by comparison, as you can tell, side by side, and the bolt is a lot smaller as well, the little stud set screw. So when you look at this, I think this is original. This would have been forged probably, not sure really, but that would have been made in factory. That's factory. This is blacksmith, very much like the repair I showed you a second ago. This is definitely blacksmith, and you can't really tell on the camera because it's difficult to see. I'll put a camera shot up, a still photograph, but inside there where my thumb is, there's a seam, and what this was a piece of flat steel that has been made into a cylinder, and I think probably welded here and here, because this side has got the other end of the flat just there, and it's been shaped, and it's got a nice thick boss here for a thread. A blacksmith has done that at some point in the last 100 odd years. That's been taken down to the local smithy because the old one's broken or it's fell off or whatever, and they've said we need a new collar, and a blacksmith has made one. And that is, again, pure history, and I absolutely love it, because that is make do and mend at its best. Probably that as well, make do and mend, because that is a ropey old bit of steel that's obviously been in somebody's scrap bin. There's a hole there which is not used. There's another hole there under there which is not used. That is a piece of steel that was in somebody's bin. That'll do. Get it repaired so we can get the job done out in the field. And that's what all this was about. Farmers notoriously fix stuff, and their methods are questionable at best. But this is a blacksmith job, I would say, or possibly an agriculture engineer, farm engineer, maybe job did that. But certainly done metalworking. Doesn't look the same, but that doesn't matter. It's all part of the history. So next thing we've got to do is mount the frame on the shaft. So it's going to be a little bit awkward. I'm on my own, so and that shaft is not light. It's pretty dense and heavy, but I'm sure I'll manage. Let's get it done. Put that on first. Then we want the quadrant, because it goes between the two legs. We can push that down as we go. There we go. Easy as that. Absolutely simple as simple can be. We just got to get it in the middle, and we'll just, for now, just lock off those collars so it's there in the middle. And I want to get it on its wheels today, just so that I can move it around. So, right, one wheel cleaned up in the middle of the hub there. The bearing hub itself, that basically goes inside the main wheel hub. And then this is the bearing surface that goes onto the axle, like that. And then it's bolted through here with 2 bolts and nuts on the back. There is also on the back side a ring under which a felt seal would go. So the seal would go on this side, under here, and the ring would fit in there and hold the seal in. Whether I'm going to be able to manage to do that, I'm not sure. And then what stops the wheel from sliding inboard is one of the tine carriers. So when the tine carriers are on, that's butts right up hard against it, and that stops it sliding inboard. And then finally, we've got the outboard collar, which sits on the end of the axle shaft, and that stops the wheel from coming off the end. So it's a pretty substantial bolt, but it needs to be, because it's got to be tight, otherwise the wheel's going to fall off. So I just want to get them on. The last thing I'm going to do today, because it's getting late now and I need to be able to wheel it around, so that will get me mobile again. So the first thing to go on is the inner ring, It's conical for some reason. I don't quite know why it's conical. It might be because it's got a seal on it. I'm not entirely sure. I need to figure that out. It's very loose on there though, so it's not going to do a huge amount, but it just sort of like gives it a bit of a wear face, I suppose. Then we've got the main hub, which goes in to the hub of the wheel, and the main hub, basically that does the wearing. That's the wearing part. Okay, so wears on in the inside, and given the fact that this is so old, there's hardly any wear on that at all. And I think what's supposed to have happened is, well, actually I'm not entirely sure, because I was going to say this is obviously worn away on the old one, but then this should be the sacrificial part, I would imagine, because it's easily replaceable. If that all wears away on there, you've got to change the whole thing like I'm doing. Whereas if it did it actually in real world, real time, you just unbolt one of these, put a new one in, grease it up, and good to go. So don't quite know why that's worn so much in there, and this is hardly worn at all. But anyway, it doesn't matter. We stick it into the wheel, and we'll stick it on. It goes straight on, and then what bolts that down basically keeps this flange bolted to the main wheel itself are these long bolts with a square underneath and a countersunk top, and they're flat as well. And basically they go in to the flange, which has got a square in it. It sits flush like that, one on both sides, and holds the hub, the bearing hub, inside the main wheel hub. Now these have seen better days, as you can see, so there's a good chance I'm going to have to find some new ones, or improvise, or maybe tap up a friend that's got a lathe that's very good at making bolts like this. So I might go and see him and see if he can sort something out for me. He's really good at that sort of stuff, so I am absolutely useless. So yes, probably new bolts, but for now we're just going to hang it on there. Finally is the locking collar, which goes on the outside. Now this may lock in on the groove underneath, because the groove is now underneath here, which is where it will end up, because that's how it's designed to be. And it may be that I turn that upside down and lock it on the groove, so it's got more purchase and more thread. And then on the inside, what we use to hold the wheel in is basically the tine. So the tine clamps up underneath, goes into the groove. You've got the little step there that corresponds with the groove that I've cut, and that locks to the shaft. And then basically with it here, with this ring here, it rides up against the wheel and stops the wheel from floating backwards and forwards. That's how it's meant to work. So these all need cleaning up, so I'm not going to put them on today. So what I'm going to do temporarily is just going to put up a Jubilee clip, just hold the wheel on so it doesn't fall off. There we have it. Let's see whether we're going to get away with those wheels. I'm not entirely sure I am. They're nowhere near as bad as they were. There is quite a lot of play on this side now I've cleaned it. That might be due. May have to rethink that. But for now, she's a roller. Right, so she's back on her wheels. Not too certain about the play in the wheels now. Now I've cleaned up the hubs and everything and taken all the dirty rust and horrible stuff away. Obviously I've taken material off. So one side is looking a little bit loose, but I might be able to tighten that up. We'll have to see. But anyway, it's on its wheels. The spine is done, as you can see, and we're a good way into getting this ready for the autumn cultivations. If you like what you see, please put a subscription down on the channel. It is free. You can keep up with all the stuff we do, whether you're into tractors or cars or Land Rovers or bits of ugly old antique iron, which in my personal view is beautiful, but then I'm a bit odd. Yeah, just subscribe to the channel, click the like button, that'd be really great. And if you want to comment on this, give me any information, that'd be fantastic. And until the next time, take care, and I'll see you then.